Olivia Cellini. I'm a structural engineer, owner of the Milovia group. I've done a lot of work with solar companies over the last 6 years. My main focus on that is the structure and making sure that when the solar is on the roof, it's safe. And so I got involved with the New York State Green Code Committee. It was a committee that was started to take the International Green Construction Code, that it was the 2012 edition, and our job was to basically take that code and transform it into a New York code. And from my perspective, I was trying to get a lot of code written to make it to have more mandates for the structure for solar panels, because if you go into the main building code, there's basically no descriptions for solar panels as far as the structure. So that was kind of how I got into the code. It was a 2-year process that I was doing it. It was a lot of back and forth discussion, and I think it came down to, as a New York State code, it would be considered mandatory. It wouldn't be considered one of these green standards like LEED or Green Globes or Passive House that people have started to come familiar with, that has always been optional. It's always been up to the building owner or up to the homeowner if they wanted to do this. So the biggest challenge for us as a committee member was how do we take this code that's basically going to be a requirement. It's going to be a minimum requirement for all buildings. In the end, at the time where it is right now, I just spoke with a couple of people over at the ICC, the International Code Committees, the Code Council, and they said right now it's stuck. It's stuck because of elections coming up and nobody wants to step on certain toes, and it's right now nothing's being done, but I can guarantee that in the next, the codes come out, a new edition comes out every 3 years, and there's different cycles. So the green code is in its own cycle, so it's not an issue of if this is going to happen. It's just a matter of when. And it's basically, it breaks it into residential and commercial construction. Right now what we're thinking is that residential might be up to the jurisdiction. So in the green code, there was a special table that every jurisdiction would basically say, yes, our area is going to be following this code, or no, we're not going to be doing it because we're not there yet. It's just too advanced, or it's just going to be too costly.
Did they separate that at all according to climate? Like something different maybe on Long Island than you would do in
Right,
Potsdam.
And that was another challenge. Is we had on the code committee, we had someone down from New York City, someone from Long Island. We had, of course, a lot of people up here in Albany because it was held at the NYSERDA offices. We had someone from Buffalo. So it's a challenge because even though it's New York State, which is in the Northeast, there's a lot of different climates. We are considered a heating climate, so our heating loads are always going to be a lot more than the cooling loads for most buildings, depending on the design of it. But for the most part, it's difficult because you're taking the IGCC, which is a national code, and you're basically condensing it into a code for New York State. And so there were certain portions in the IGCC that wasn't as important as, say, over in California, water resources. Water it's much more important in places like Arizona, California. So it was a big challenge because we had to basically determine what issues are we facing the most here in terms of green construction, what areas do we need to focus more on. I wrote some code proposals for solar panels that simply just the code didn't exist at that time. And we'll see. And basically at the end of 2013, which is kind of when we ended at the time, and we were going to reconvene, is that we're either going to have a New York Green Code that's going to be a minimum mandatory requirements, or we're just going to take the different parts of the code and try to put it into different applicable codes. So, basically it might be divided into the different codes. So like structural requirements for solar might go into the building code, might go into the structural, chapter 16 of the building code, which is really where it should be. But that's kind of where it is right now. So.
Yeah, no, I think I have questions for it too, but we'll just all wait to see what
Right.
comes up as we all talk.
Yeah.
So thanks, Olivia. So Karen runs Green Conscience, it's over on